Hello and welcome back to the Transfer Show here on Anfield Index. I'm Trev Downey, you know where I am, and that's Dave Davis, and you know where he is. And we'll dispense with the weather talk, Dave, because it's transfer time and it's transfer window time, and we have some things to talk about. But let's, I think, maybe tamper down people's wild hopes a little bit, because I heard your pal um, use the phrase manage expectations around this window. And I was transported back in time to many windows in the past where that has been the case. It's going to be a quiet one. Relax yourselves.
Yeah, I kind of said to David Lynch afterwards, you didn't really help me sell that show, did you, in all honesty? You might as well have just said at the end, death comes to us all type of thing, and really lifted the mood a little bit. But it is right, a little bit of managing expectations does exist at the moment. There's little flickers, little glimmers of hope, but it's hope rather than expectation, isn't it, at the moment?
And again, just for the purposes of being honest and real, like we always try to do, you and I, in this show, I would put on the record that I think it's incredibly daft if we don't do some business of a very sensible nature, of a plug and play nature. I have a horrible sinking feeling as I watch Liverpool over this glorious unbeaten stretch of a season slipping away, of opportunities going awry. And the fact is that we should be taking advantage of other people being a bit shit and having difficult fixtures, but we're just trundling along in our horrible mediocrity. So I want to just out there that from the transfer point of view, from my point of view on this show, I think this managing expectations crack that's being briefed, I can't have it at all. I don't know where you stand with this.
I think it's mad almost, to be honest, if we don't do anything in this window. I think we used a phrase the other week, a bit of a dereliction of duty from those who were involved there. And I think it's important to say, because I see a lot, because everyone's in that mood where they want to jump on everything. All your journalists as well are saying clearly, this is what we're being told. We're briefing that out, manage expectations. But they're all also saying on various pods and articles, we need to do something. We need another centre half and different bits. I can't think of anyone of sound mind that you'll come across that doesn't think we need to do at least one, probably more in this window.
Well, there's the phrase. Most of us have had our minds a little bit battered at this stage. So there are a lot of frayed and fragile mental states out there. I have sympathy. I really do, because a lot of people are going out of their way to be supportive towards the manager because it's the Liverpool way. A lot of people are going out of their way to just support the lads because it's the Liverpool way and all sorts of things like that. But I think it is fair enough to voice the frustration at what we are having to watch. And again, just to tee it up that little bit more, because we don't have quite as much by way of subject matter as we often do. So I just want to lay the foundations a little bit. You get to go to these games. And I would like to ask you a question as a regular match goer. Obviously, I'm not. I'm in Ireland. It's not possible for me. Do you have the same sense of frustration in the crowd, from the crowd, as I feel simply watching it? I was watching with my family on St. Stephen's Day, Boxing Day, as you guys call it. And it was just one of the most frustrating things I've ever seen. I can't remember how many times I used the phrase, "Oh, good, another corner." It just feels really uninspired and a little bit gutless at the minute, this risk-averse football. Is that to be felt in the ground? I was curious about that.
Yeah, I think it's telling that after the Leeds game, the 0-0, you did hear a few boos at the end. Not like the whole crowd, but a few boos. And I think just you feel the sentiment in the stadium that actually, and you could hear people saying it, and it's true. And one guy near us just literally went out loud at half time. We went, "Fuck me, that was boring, wasn't it?" type of thing. And it's hard to argue with anything different. You're not on the edge of your seat. You're not excited. You're not even getting like a flicker. It is just zero-sum football. The focus is on don't lose. And that's what mid-table teams do, isn't it? More than anything, this is not the way we're supposed to play. And I get we had to stop the bleeding. I understand that had to happen, but I still can't get my head around the way people go, but we're unbeaten in 9 and we're in 4th place. Like, we've won 5 of the last 15 games. We've been abject, insipid, boring at times. It's just, you are starting to feel that in the stadium, and you are starting to hear it from more and more people, even those ones that were strongly like, no, back everything. I think you're even hearing it different from them now, aren't you?
Yeah, notably in the last couple of days, I picked up on that as well. We're not quite at Nat Phillips territory yet with Federico Chiesa, but we're not far off it either, because I think we all really like the guy. He seems to be just a wonderful chap, a really good character. He's clearly a very talented footballer. Our manager doesn't agree. And of course, you can say that he had his chance from the start there recently. He didn't show it, whatever. I think he's been as good or as bad as any number of them. And I think he's had a very powerful impact when he has come on as a sub for, vital roles. But I hate to do this, but we looks like we're starting the show with a player out in the form of Chiesa, because there is some whispers about people being interested in him.
Yeah, it's almost UK versus European a little bit here on the journalist side, because Romano had it out, didn't he, that Federico Chiesa would be open to return to Juventus, but the deal depends on Liverpool. And on the other side of the ring, you've got James Pearce saying Liverpool have not received any contact or a potential move for Federico Chiesa. He remains a valuable part of the squad. Now, doing a little bit of digging, as we always do on this, it is important to say a few things. Like you mentioned, first of all, like Stevie Wonder can see that Arne Slot doesn't fancy Federico Chiesa. And there's a part of when James Pearce put that tweet out, and I get, obviously, this is not a dig at him, but he said, he's a valuable member of the squad who's played a part in the last 5 games. He's played 85 minutes across those entire 5 games, Trev. So, when you say, let's just be factual on that. You can make your judgments from that a little bit. We all know what Arne Slot thinks of Federico Chiesa. The second element is, if you're unsure of really what Arne Slot thinks about Federico Chiesa, Hugo Ekitike's been injured. Gakpo's been out. Isak's done for most of the rest of the season. So Salah's at AFCON. So that's 4 senior forwards out, yeah. And Chiesa still isn't starting. What other evidence do you really need about where Federico Chiesa? And almost, I think, a lot of us are at the stage of, for his career, for him as well, because like you say, he just seems a nice guy, doesn't he? He's a popular guy within the dressing room as well. What's best for him, especially if he's got that Italy World Cup dream? Key thing to say with this is, I'm not doubting what James Pearce is saying, that Liverpool have not yet had that full, here's an offer for Federico Chiesa from Juventus and all that. I'm not doubting that. But what's really important to stress is Romano is close, or is known to get info from, I'm probably butchering the name here, but I think it's Fali Ramandi, I think it's pronounced, Chiesa's agent, who has a number of clients and usually is quite quick on the Italian side, isn't he, as well? If anyone doubts that, Romano had Giovanni Leone first, didn't he? And then people were like, oh, is that right? And then we put the photo on the screen of where Giovanni Leone was having dinner with Fabrizio Romano and family and stuff like that. So, there is an obvious connection there at the same time. And it is important to say, in terms of limitations for Liverpool that they've got in this transfer window, Trev, there's no available non-homegrown spots, isn't there? We've talked about that before on the show. So that could still free one up. And the only thing I was told, it's just a bit weird this today, and I hadn't really thought about it until it got mentioned to me. People are still saying just keep an eye on the Semenyo situation. And I know that seems crazy because everyone's about to shout and he probably will still end up at City, don't get me wrong. But wasn't he supposed to sign for City days and days ago? And isn't that clause ending on the 10th of Jan as well? So, yeah, it's, of course, just to be clear, he isn't going unless we get someone in. And the final bit of info we've got is Liverpool are saying for Chiesa, it's got to be a permanent. They're not going to do any type of loan because they don't want to end up in a Harvey Elliott situation, do they? So they could do a loan with an obligation, not a Harvey Elliott style obligation, of course, but it's whether Juventus want to commit to that as well. If you just my prediction, and this is not factual on what we've got, I just don't think this happens because Juventus aren't going to want to commit to an obligation. Liverpool aren't going to want to do probably a loan with an option just because you've then got the problem in the summer as well. So we'll see. But yeah, UK versus European sources on Federico Chiesa.
And why am I not surprised that it's bad news, Jimbo Pierce, with the take that we don't want to hear. And listen, I don't want Federico Chiesa to leave the club, but I also don't want to see him on the bench when we're playing two midfielders. Yeah. Well, this season starting midfielders in the wide positions and a wide player in the central attacking position in our last match. That's how highly Federico Chiesa is rated by Arne Slot. Whether you like it or not, that's the reality of it. And as you say, would open up a non-homegrown spot. But then again, we'd have to go and get someone, wouldn't we? And the Semenyo thing is just tantalizingly still there, just a small percentage. Maybe City are holding their water because maybe City, as we're going to mention later on, have another idea for some more business. They may be just filling up the barrel full of gold before they head off to the market. Now, you mentioned Harvey Elliott in passing there, as in we don't want another Harvey Elliott situation. And good God, if I invoked the spirit of Nat Phillips earlier on to talk about how sorry I feel for Fede Chiesa. Harvey Elliott, nobody deserves this, let alone a good lad like Harvey, who wanted to stay at the club and was told that he wouldn't play, who then went to get the best opportunity for him. Now, a lot of people raised their eyebrows when he went to Villa, to be fair.
Yeah.
I wondered about how he might fit in there with that manager, with that squad. And they have been proved right because he's not getting a sniff. And now we've got this horrible situation where he's returning to the club. Right, there are a couple of levels here to this, Dave, I think. There's the obvious humiliation for the kid. And he doesn't deserve that in any way, shape, or form. He's way too good of a footballer to be in this position. And yet we have this ridiculous scenario where unless we get an offer from outside of the Eurozone, the UEFA zone, or whatever it is, we're in trouble. What is the latest there? There were some MLS rumblings. Was it Charlotte and a few people like that? What do we know about this at the moment?
Harvey Elliott is almost in football purgatory. He's almost in a little game of chicken between Villa and Liverpool because there's no recall clause in that for Liverpool. Liverpool don't want to do that because Arne Slot doesn't want Harvey Elliott. I can't really think of another way of putting it. It's that straightforward. Also, Villa don't want to then play him a certain number of games. Unai Emery's been clear because they don't want to activate that, that obligation and pay the money. But they also don't necessarily want to send him back because we know Villa are tight on the FFP. And the only way Liverpool will countenance that is with a financial penalty, won't they? Or some sort of agreement. So I just really, I feel for the kid a little bit in that sense that he is stuck in between. The one thing I will say, though, and a few have pointed this out, a lot of people are digging out at Aston Villa, aren't they? Saying, I can't believe they've treated him like this, using a clause like that. I'm just saying, Trev, just remember, Liverpool did not play Darwin Núñez to avoid a clause. Football can be, as we know, a very hypocritical or, through your own fans type of lens. So just keep that in mind for the story as well. That's important to say. But, I mean, it was floated out there, wasn't it? And shot down, like you said, with Charlotte, MLS. He's not going to go to Saudi. I genuinely feel for the kid. I think literally everything is possible. He could just sit there still at Villa, rotting away. The smart money says that he will somehow end up back at Liverpool, however that gets negotiated with Villa and sorted there, as a lot are expecting. But, okay, he does. So what? A little bit. He's not. Arne Slot's not going to play him, is he? In the nicest way, he's not in his thinking. So, if you think we used another player, as we've said before, Harvey Elliott is probably lower in Arne Slot's thinking than Federico Chiesa. So that should tell you everything you need to know. But I mean, football is a ruthless sport. But you don't have to feel for the kid a little bit in this situation because we know he's a Liverpool fan. He always gave his best. He always wanted to make it at the club. It was just never going to happen for different reasons. But now it's just a nightmare for him. It really is.
Well, the main reason was the change of manager, if we're being honest, because he was very much a favorite of Jurgen Klopp, who trusted him to do a job in at least two different positions where he liked what Harvey could offer. Arne, it appears, does not. But the situation has changed. So Slot has now lost Alexander Isak, and he has a situation where he's got no Mo Salah for a period of time. Do you think that that might be some sort of forcing of the hand situation, which might work out for Harvey in terms of getting him some game time, and for us in terms of getting another squad player in? A lot of people are just like, no, we're done. We don't want to go back there, primarily because they don't want to see a player they don't like. And then some other people don't want to see the lad being badly treated again by Slot and ignored. So I understand both sides of it, but I can't help but think that if there's no apparent move on the cards, that it might be just the most simple thing in the world to include him back in the squad. He is that homegrown thing as well.
Yeah, I'm kind of that way. I mean, you think of the recent games we've had, and this is not me endorsing Harvey Elliott becoming a first teamer for Liverpool or anything like that, but just look at the recent games we've had, like Leeds at home, that 0-0, how droll and boring that was. Do you know what? Fuck it. If he was there, you'd have chucked Harvey Elliott on for the last 15, wouldn't you? And say, go and make something happen. Just do just create, play a ball, try and make something happen. There's worse options in the world. Because we are a bit sick and twisted in the best possible way on this transfer show, and as we always say, some men like to see the world burn. There is a little part of us would just like to see Chiesa sent out and Harvey Elliott come back as a new signing type of thing, just so we could get the reactions, almost like Elmo on fire on social media, and just watch the absolute meltdown across the board. There is a little part of me would want to see that, but I'm not sure it'd be the best for Harvey's career.
No. I'm just amazed at the restraint in the chat panel so far, because I thought when you said that, it'd just go off. But I think hopefully people understand that we are slightly not serious, but also a bit serious in that we do like the chaos of this. That's why we're drawn to do this show in the first place, let's be honest. And as someone says in the chat panel earlier on, sentimentality aside, I'm all for that. I'm not a person for sentiment. I thought that's where we were going with the club, but I didn't expect it to be matched up with whatever we currently are experiencing. Now, one of the sort of factors in this sentiment-free zone that we've come to get to know in the wake of Jurgen's departure, where it was possibly a little bit too sentiment-heavy at times. The key figure in that, of course, is Arne Slot. Now, he's got to be looking around a bit nervously today as a certain lad went missing. We'll come to him in a bit later on. From missing in action in Manchester, we've had a high-profile guy go missing in action in London, a fellow bald brother. And I just wonder, what do you think he's thinking at this stage? Because the Slot situation is still up for grabs, you would imagine. I don't think anyone, you and I certainly don't expect any change before the end of the season. But do you think there's a situation where it could actually be a situation that it gets triggered? Because you look at what Chelsea did, and Chelsea said, right, Maresca is not bringing us where we need to go. And they're not exactly having the worst season in the world. And United are a couple of points behind us? But they've pulled the trigger. So, I don't know. Should he be a bit nervous?
I think part of the big difference between Chelsea, United and Liverpool, I mean, two of those clubs are a fucking dumpster fire, aren't they? The way they run, the way they operate, and of course, a bit of a clown club, especially one of them. So that goes into the mix. The second big thing is Arne Slot, and it is business, so it is ruthless, don't get me wrong. But in terms of the relationship with Richard Hughes, the sporting director in the hierarchy, Arne Slot does, I can't really think of another way of putting it, defends Richard Hughes a lot, helps deflect a lot and takes a lot of the brunt, doesn't he? And, just plays things down quite well in press conferences for him. So that comes into the mix. The big thing we're getting at the moment from Arne Slot is, timing can be everything, as we say, don't we, in football, Trev? That at the moment, there's a real reluctance from the club to do anything for a number of reasons, because it's only going to be if we're outside that Champions League picture and whatever anyone thinks. And listen, I'm not saying I'm hard to slot in by any means, but we are in fourth place factually at the moment. So we're not outside the Champions League mix. The second thing to say is the market will always be a factor. That if you go into the market now, you're competing against Chelsea and United, aren't you, for their options at the same time? So that makes it more difficult. Also, the summer. The summer, there are likely to be more top names, if you want to call it, available. That if you genuinely, and the club are fully aware of this, if you go into the summer, there's a real possibility that Xavi Alonso's available. A real possibility that Nagelsmann post-World Cup is available at the same time. Real question marks around Luis Enrique, of course, and PSG and other names that you can go into. So the summer market looked a lot better. So Liverpool are aware of that at the same time. If you go now, it's probably interim, isn't it? Most likely. I'm not saying Liverpool couldn't get someone they want, but the situation looks better for the powers that be in the summer. This is just trying to explain it from how Liverpool see it. I'm not saying I necessarily agree with this. It's just what we're being told. So if you go interim, who's your interim? Because it's not going to be Jurgen Klopp. If you think Michael Edwards is going to allow Jurgen Klopp to come back to the club, like, you're off your wedding cake in those types of things. You're probably looking at maybe Stevie. Do you really want that? I don't think I do either. I'm not sure the club do it at the same time as well. So, and also, if you're going to go interim, again, going back to that original point, it's going to have to be a situation where they're in real danger of missing out on the Champions League. And that we just aren't in that situation yet. Don't get me wrong. I'm like literally looking and going, this is boring. This is, turgid, this football. And we've all got real questions at the moment. And it's important to note that they'll have a year left to go in the summer. There are zero negotiation talks going on at the same time as well for that extension of the contract. I think we all know what's going to happen realistically in the summer anyway. The only other bit we got as well, and it's really important to note this, quite a few journalists have sort of alluded to it, and you can get this from a few sources. After that PSG, do you remember we got battered 4-1 at home and we were absolutely hopeless? As we said, there were talks between, the hierarchy, whatever you want to call it as, and senior players were spoken to. And Arne Slot wasn't far away from that chop at that time, because you remember when we got on that run with like losing to Forest at home, losing to PSV, he did stop the bleeding. That's important to say. But at the end of the day, it's still only 5-15. But long story short, because it is important, though, to give all that context, the powers that be don't want to do anything now, because it also reflects badly on them a little bit, because he's their appointment. They're only going to do it once, or they would do it if the Champions League is under real threat. It is not at the moment. And the market in the summer looks 1,000 times better in terms of the names you could get and who might be available. So when you stack all that up, that is how it's being seen from above.
Yeah, and two names to add to the list of people you mentioned would be Inzaghi and also Fabregas, who we were linked to very recently, or speaking to very recently. I find the idea that it's out there that the players were consulted to be probably the most critical factor in terms of where he is. I don't understand how anyone can maintain an authority if the people who he is, charged with organizing are saying, well, I'm not sure. Let's talk about his merits. I'm not saying it has to be dictatorial, Dave, but I do think you have to have that sense of unquestioned authority. I don't see how it works otherwise. And that to me would already suggest that that's not there. I think there's a certain feel of dead man walking off it. And when you look at what's happened over the last couple of games, just those last two games, we've come off that couple of wins in a row. And then all of a sudden you're dropping points in that way, in that just horrible way on the 26th against Leeds. That's 2 points thrown away. And then there was, again, 2 points thrown away in the final seconds in the last outing. It's not good enough in any way, shape, or form. And the manager's coming out. I think he's an honest guy, and I think he sometimes says too much for his own good. And he's saying things like he's shrugging and going, I don't know, these things keep happening, and these sort of things that, did anyone expect Liverpool to win? If you looked at what's happened. This is not the kind of thing that's going to make anyone feel better, and it's not going to help his situation either. So it feels crushingly inevitable. And I don't know, Dave. I mean, it's just by the grace of other people being a bit shit and the fortune of the way the fixtures have fallen that we are sat in that fourth position at the moment. I don't think it's in any way a given. In any way.
I really don't. I mean, even in just the next fixtures, we're going to Arsenal away. I think we're honest. We don't expect us to pick anything up in that. You expect a loss. Anything is probably a bonus. United are away at Burnley. They'll probably have that new manager bounce, which we'll talk about as well. Chelsea will have a new manager. It's their derby, isn't it, against Fulham? I mean, it's perfectly feasible that by Thursday evening, isn't it? Because we're the last one, or Wednesday evening, sorry, because these two play before, Liverpool could be in sixth place. That's absolutely feasible that Chelsea could win, having just got a draw against City at home, didn't they? And if you also look at our fixtures, Trev, we've gone through the quote-unquote easier games, haven't we, in recent times, and just absolutely thrown it away. Yeah, it's 9 unbeaten, but it's 5 out of 15. And, you kind of alluded to it there, like, what do you think it might take? If Arne Slot goes 5 out of 15 in the next run of 15, I think he will come under massive pressure if the run is just repeated again.
Yeah, and the whole thing then will be too late. That's the problem.
Yeah,
this is why it was so horrifying to certain people that you would even consider. How can you do that? How can you say that? Like, back the manager. This is not the Liverpool way, and so on and so forth. But if you can feel in your guts that something is slipping away, and you can see it, and there's something clearly wrong. And I've been saying this to you since the start of the season, towards the end of last season. Something seemed to be a bit amiss, but certainly all this campaign, there didn't seem to be that togetherness that we associate with the squad. It's an intangible, and people can roll their eyes at it all they like, but you can feel it, you can sense it. You can sense it in the ground, you can sense it when you're watching the play and the disjointed nature of it. And now we're playing this risk-averse stuff to just not get beaten. I don't know, man. I think we may be back on this topic before the window closes.
I'd be surprised if we're not, because also you couldn't have countered last season or even countenanced that you'd be talking about a Salah interview like we've had to talk about this season. And even the other day, the McAllister comments as well, the way he put it and said, but I don't like to publicly speak about this. Well, you just did on purpose, didn't you, to kind of have it out there, and he struggled and all that. So you're probably expecting him to go in the summer at the time. Yeah, it's not a healthy situation in Denmark, so to speak, isn't it? It almost just feels inevitable that we're going to have to go through this pain till the end of the season, and we go from there. That's just what it feels like at the moment.
I agree, and I don't really think that's good enough. But in terms of players coming in, I can't believe it's taken us this long to get to this. There were stories about young, talented centre backs who would not be first team ready whatsoever. Now, I want you to remind people of what those are, because I heard you speak about them on your show. And then we do have a story that's breaking today about that position too.
Yeah, I kind of feel sorry for these two young centre-backs. I'm probably going to butcher the name, but Moran Dai, so the Senegalese, and these two have both been watched at the Under-17 World Cup, and both actually named in the squad of the tournament in that as well. And I feel for them a bit, because they've been getting pelters a bit like, oh, great, players we'll never see. This isn't going to help the first team. And I get we want first team reinforcements. I completely understand that. But let's also be sensible. We want to see young talent bought, don't we, at the same time? Because that's worth the gamble. If you buy 5 and one of them comes off, it's a smart investment. Liverpool should be doing this at the same time. I think what's interesting is they're both giants, aren't they? This Ndiaye and the, I can't remember the Austrian boy's name, but 6'6" at like 17 or whatever already. So that they are buying like big aerial presences as people are reporting on as well, which I think's good. the one thing people are asking a little bit, and I kind of got this, and I didn't get anything when digging on it. People are saying, wouldn't this make sense to park these two at a second club? You know, that second club that FSG have been looking at for a while, you know, getting them a bit more experience at a lesser level across experienced centre halves, as opposed to playing for our under 21s, which respectfully is just a mile away from the first team and where you need to be in that sense. And I did get that, but nothing we can get around sort of a second club or anything. We'll just have to see if that breaks at all. But in terms of centre halves, Christ, we're going to sound like we're on homes under the hammer for this, aren't we, when we describe this fully? Because people might have clocked it today. A few mentioned it online and doing some digging. Yeah, this one has been stood up. Liverpool are having a serious look at Toulouse's Charlie Cresswell. Part of England's under 21 Euro side, wasn't he? With Harvey Elliott, Jarell Kwanzaa's partner that way in that tournament winning team, playing at Toulouse, kind of doing well and doing a bit of digging on this. It's just weird, to be honest. Big strengths are, you know, hungry to defend, strong in the air, physical presence. Questions are around his overall pace and his ability on the ball. So you're kind of like, okay, sounding a bit Nat Phillips, all this a little bit, isn't it, all of a sudden? But hey-ho. But part of the attraction, apparently, to Liverpool, as we were talking about before we went live, getting that info, just the value of the deal, that you could be talking 2 years left to go in the summer. So Toulouse looking for quite a smallish fee. And also the player not sort of seeking big wages. So and no one's going to like me saying this, but sensed as a market opportunity. And not only are we talking market opportunity, people, you're going to like this. Think homes under the hammer. Because the other bit of info we've got on this is that Liverpool can see this as, obviously with the centre-back issues they've got at the moment, for the right price and for the right deal, you can get Cresswell in and then you can flip him. Like they do with a semi-detached house in Coventry type of thing, Trev. That little bit type of thing. So yeah, that was what we got told. And it's just interesting. We're like, when you go digging on this, like, is he quick? No. Is he a good passer and progressive? No. Right. What does he do? Head the ball well, strong in defence. A bit like Nat Phillips. Not quite, but, and this was my favourite to say, what would you describe it? And as one person said to us, well, it's not Kabak and Davis exactly, but yeah, in that regard. So this just, I mean, I didn't think they'd take us literally when we said we needed a centre-back and we're almost at that break glass in case of emergency because we've only got 1.5 fit. And this sounds like I'm not trying to do down Charlie Cresswell, and I can't pretend I've watched him at all, but just being honest on the info that we got, not the quickest, not the best on the ball, but strong aerially, you know, prepared to put his body on the line. And it could just be that deal that, because of the overall value, is seen as the market opportunity. But more if they did it now, they'd look to flip him like a semi-detached in Coventry in a year's time or so. I wish we had a better update than that, but that's what we got.
It's exciting stuff. And I can't help but think about the Kwanzaa link. And, you know, we were quite happy to let Kwanzaa go, and we were quite happy to let Joe Gomez go as well. And I'm just wondering about these guys and big brains that they're supposed to have, because now we're looking to buy a lad who was acknowledged as being a solid citizen, but the lesser player to the guy who we've let go. And yeah, I mean, I understand this concept. I'm currently very much flirting with an E-Class coupe from a few years back. And I am thinking I'll buy that, I'll fix up the wheels and I'll flip it and I can have it for a year and drive it and it'll be cool. And I'll get my money back and a bit more. So yeah, market opportunity, sure. But man, it's so uninspiring, isn't it? It's very much like the transfer story of the football that we're playing at the moment. It's just kind of, right. Now, the only thing I would say about that is, if that represents the closest we have to a story about an incoming, and we do have a lot of past journals doing a lot of chat about sort of managing your expectations and moderating your excitement levels. Where does the business lie then in this window? Surely there are going to be, we know there are loans that are going very badly. They're going to have to probably get fixed up. One of them is young McConnell. What's the story with him?
Yeah, Ajax wanting to end that. He's not really part of their plans at all. So, it's expected he comes back. He does have a knock, so he's not going to be able to play for a little while as well. And I think people were like, oh, this would be good because he plays as a DM, doesn't he? He's aggressive. He can be useful probably for that. But, I mean, I'm not saying Arne Slot is the child catcher in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, but he doesn't really seem to have that much time for youth products, does he, at the same time? So if you think James McConnell's going to come in Arne Slot's plans, like, not a chance in hell. And I think a few have reported this. There's a lot of interest from championship clubs who wanted him before he went to Ajax, and especially Swansea and Vitor Matos. Do you remember one of Klopp's lieutenants? He's there now. So very keen on him. And I expect him to almost be in the revolving door at the AXA. They'll kind of come, get fit, and go out on loan. They won't use him at all because then he'll have played for 2 clubs in the season, can't he? And he can't go anywhere like a Harvey Elliott situation. So you might see him in his training kit, get him fit at the AXA, but at some point, full expectation is back through the revolving door, whether it's Swansea or another championship club.
It's all very flat and uninspiring around the club at the moment in terms of stories for us. Of course, other clubs are doing business. And you mentioned Manchester City earlier on, and it was kind of almost a done deal, right? They're getting Semenyo. We're hearing people during match commentary saying, look, he's waving goodbye to the fans. It's all gone a bit tumbleweed since then. But we're assuming that that's going to go ahead. But they're going to eat our lunch on another one too, aren't they? And we've just been talking about centre halves, and of course the big deal that we missed out on, and much to the annoyance of an awful lot of people, was Mark Guehi at the final hour in the summer window. And now it looks like City are going to come and eat our chips.
Yeah, and funnily enough, did we mention this a few weeks ago that City had approached Palace in terms of what would it take for Mark Guehi, and City's needs have now got a little bit more drastic because they're obviously in a title race. They want to stay in that. They've had the Ruben Diaz injury, and people may have clocked that Gvardiol went off with, people are suspected even an ACL against Chelsea. So they have to report on that. So it's just become more official, hasn't it, that as Sammy Mockball put there, they're exploring the move. Again, we had this a few weeks ago. I think the only thing it's important to say is this is a great opportunity if Crystal Palace want it, because we know about their manager situation and we can talk about that another time. But, I mean, he leaves for free in 6 months, doesn't he, if they don't do anything? There was even reports there, and these are obviously leaked from the Crystal Palace and other side, that if he is to go, they want more than the 35 million that Liverpool had agreed on in this. As if, with respect, everyone knows that, what was it, 20 million we turned down for Trent with 6 months left to go. See if you're going to get 35. But that is obviously just to try and start it, because they're not stupid, Palace. They probably look at the summer and went, did we do the right thing? You could argue it differently. But if you can get decent money as Crystal Palace for a player with 6 months left, if you can almost get a little bit of a bidding war going between Liverpool and City, and try and do something like that and bring others in like Bayern, maybe. I just don't know on this one. I almost get the impression, as we've done from digging on this, that Mark Guehi is not interested in being used as a pawn by Crystal Palace or getting involved in these types of games. And he'd have to be absolutely convinced it was the right thing. I think I would still bet that Mark Guehi is a Crystal Palace player and goes on a free, because that's probably what he will want to do and sit for there. But we said it a couple of weeks ago, the stories are breaking now, aren't they, that City are there? I suppose the big question is, if City do make a proper move, how do we react? Do we go with that? Because obviously it's felt inevitable that was going to be one of our, not saying bankers, but one on a free that we were probably looking at seriously. if it's under threat from City, do we go for it? That's the big question, isn't it, really?
It sure is. And it could be the saving of the campaign for us if our hand is forced in that regard, because we're looking very thin in that department.
Yeah.
That is for sure. Obviously, Joe came back at the weekend, but for how long?
Yeah.
So it's something you'd love to see, where it might spark Liverpool into a bit of action. But obviously, City are not sitting on their hands because there's something to do. Other clubs, as I mentioned earlier on, are not sitting on their hands when it comes to rooting out what they find to be the key issue. In both cases, it's the manager. Now, you and I haven't really talked about Maresca's sacking. And today, Ruben Amorim got the heave-ho from Man United. This, of course, opens up a couple of positions and the talk about interims, and they'll all have their own Stevie G type characters who might come in and do a job. And there will be a couple of jobbing, old pros looking at being a safe pair of hands for a while for the likes of them as well. But it's a very, very interesting situation, and it could also have a direct impact on the reason the Guehi deal didn't go through, which is Mr. Glasner.
Yeah, I mean, it was supposed we go to Chelsea first. One thing these two sackings have got in common is when you take on people above you, it'll never end well. But both of those people knew that, in all honesty. Maresca knew that. Amorim knew that. They went after different people, didn't they? Maresca did his whole, people aren't backing me, I'm being undermined. And obviously it just came out that was one of the co-owners, wasn't it? One of Sweeney Todd's party there as well. So we knew how that was going to end. And as it also came out, part of that at the same time was because he's probably eyeing the City job in the summer, isn't he, when Pep leaves? So it's a nice bit of compo now, 6 months rest, and then that's his probably dream to land that. And they're getting Liam Rosinia. I'm sure it was a tough negotiation with Strasbourg, one of their feeder clubs as well. Some people just talking in an empty room to themselves, doing a negotiation. So, they're looking for that new manager bounce. They got a draw there. We'll see how that ends. Then you had Ruben Amorim. And Ruben Amorim, whatever's happened behind the scenes with Jason Wilcox, their sporting director, he did that whole thing in the press conference, didn't he? With I came to be the manager. I did not come to be the head coach. And he repeated it 4 times, as in, I'm not clearly happy with what the recruitment's going or what's happening behind the scenes. But another one who took a shot is Paymasters, knowing full well what would happen. And it was interesting. If you look how stressed Amorim's been on the touchline, did you see the photos of him outside his mansion in Cheshire today? Looked like a Gucci model, doesn't he? Striding with the leather jacket and the shades. He's literally just thinking massive wad of cash. I'll be a bit of a break now. I'll be back in a job in 6 months' time in the summer, won't I? With a fat compensation, and I'm out of this circus. And also, I can stick on my CV when I go in for job interviews to go, come on, I was at United. Look at the shit show that. And yeah, you're probably right. So we'll just write that off a little bit as well. So it works well. What I kind of still love about that circus down the East Lancs, no matter what year we're in, you can still insert their fans saying, give it Giggsy, / give it Scholesy, / give it Butty, / give it Phil or Gav, / give it to the cast of the overlap or whoever's on that this week type of things. They just run through that each week, don't they? So it's kind of funny. Or give it to Fergie, Christ, have you seen him in the stands? Bless him type of thing. But that is just what they do. That's part of their routine. They almost can't see their us in history. Do you remember when we went through that 30-year they're just walking through that like we did. History's repeating itself a little bit there. So we'll see what happens. As much as I'm joking, the only worry is, I know Darren Fletcher's interim for them. Glasner seems to be the favourite, doesn't he? Quite a lot of reported that as well. Now, you probably hope if it is Glasner, okay, it's the end of the season. But I tell you what, Trev, considering we're in a top 4 race and they're 3 points behind us, I would be a little bit worried if Glasner rocked up there at Old Trafford before the end of the season, within this window, because you'd be thinking as a manager who actually knows what he's doing and can organise a little bit as well there. And we talked about Palace. Adam Wharton's been linked. And again, how many stories have come out in the last week? Of course, Adam Wharton is Liverpool's top midfield target for the summer. But if you don't get Champions League, forget it. Mark Gay, again, what's he thinking if Glasner walks? Because we all know, really, that was the reason why it wasn't rubber stamped for Liverpool at the end of the day as well. I mean, there's so many weird connotations and links to us in this. I suppose the only worry is, through the combination of all this shit show, what if Liam Rosenior does okay? What if United do get someone like Glasner and it goes okay? And I get, as I'm posing these questions, I'm throwing it a bit like, what if God was one of us? What if Cher could turn back time? I know it's the big philosophical ones. I get all that type of thing. But there is still a little bit of a concern of what that could mean. Because, I mean, let's be honest, a lot of our fan base are looking to change the manager. You can't escape that in the moment. These two have done it through different circumstances. The question is now, who is it? And what impact are they going to have at those two clubs?
The question absolutely is, what if it works? I think that's a really valid question. And I mean, obviously, the ideal scenario is no harm to Palace. The ideal scenario is Glasner just torpedoes the whole thing, runs off to United, and Adam Wharton gets sad and Mark Way gets sad, and we sign both of them in January. Right. And everything's fine. But that's like obviously la la land. I think the real concern is exactly what you've just said there, that whatever changes they make, even if it's only one of them, it puts us under pressure.
Yeah.
If it's both of them doing comparatively well compared to how they have been doing so far, that's not good for us at all. Especially considering it doesn't look like we have any great sort of platform for building improving results upon. It's not like, oh, you can see what we're trying to do and it's just not clicking just yet and we keep losing 4-3. It's not that at all. It's just sort of inspiration free. So yeah, that is a concern, and that is absolutely a very valid concern. We have a couple of stories away from the Premier League to finish with. I think my favorite story of the whole show is Leonard Carl. This kid, he's obviously of a similar vein to you and I. He obviously just wants to watch the world burn. He clearly has zero F's to give about anything. What a remarkable little interview he gave. Talk people through that in case they haven't seen it, and tell them who he is as well.
Can you imagine? There was probably a meeting after this in the Bavarian Hills where Karl Heinz, Big Ule, Max Eberl, and them all sat down and went, how the fuck did this happen? Like, how has this come out and been? And someone stood up and go, oh, yeah, because he's like 12, we weren't allowed to give him the media training just yet. We were supposed to give. We forgot them to send him to that class. So maybe that explains it. But this was absolutely genius because, just in case you don't watch sort of European football, Leonard Carl, he's the new Bayern Munich youngster wonder kid, isn't he? Scored against Arsenal in the Champions League, the new big thing in German football. What about this for a quote as well? This was a sort of fans gathering for Bayern as well. That these are his words. FC Bayern is a very, very big club. Great start, kid. It's a dream to play there. But at some point, I definitely want to go to Real Madrid. That's my dream club. But that stays between us. Of course, Bayern is something very special. And it's a lot of fun at the club. God bless a lack of media training at times, because that is just absolutely brilliant. And honestly, as speaking to a few Bundesliga journos as well, there's literally like banners apparently been outside the training ground, a bit of like sort of mini hate campaign. It's easy to sell as in a bit of like, oh, he's just young, a bit precocious and all that. But I don't really know how he's going to walk that back. And obviously, anytime there's any future contract negotiations or things come up, this is just going to be rammed in his face time and time again. There would be a little part of me, if it was any other club, just thinking they haven't looked after the kid well there, have they? In terms of what they've briefed him and just protected him and the setting and all that. But because it's Bayern, because it's Big Uli speaking out against everyone all the time and Karl-Heinz and all that. It's just funny, isn't it, realistically, in that sense? And I mean, the only thing that's funny, would be funny to add to that, is it does look like Upamecano's close, as we said before, and Christoph Freund even came out yesterday, didn't he, and said, it's very, very advanced. So it just feels like small details on that. If only he'd come out and say, actually, Real Madrid's my dream club, so I'm going to leave on a free. That would complete like the perfect scenario. But God bless Leonard Carl. He's gone up in my estimation here.
Oh, so much. And because they're so prissy, that lot. They're so, they're going to be absolutely butthurt behind the scene. They're absolutely disgusted and just heartbroken and furious. And yeah, you're right. It couldn't happen to a nicer bunch of chaps, to be fair. Long may Lennart continue to speak into microphones. Let's finish with a story which is sort of tangentially back to Liverpool in that it's a Darwin Núñez story. He, not unlike a lot of people who've taken the jump to Saudi, seems like he's got itchy feet already, and there is talk about him moving back to continental Europe. Is there any real tangible link there? Are AC Milan back in for him, who had been in for him, or where is the link?
No, it seems a bit of a shame. I mean, you could probably guess it was never going to be a long-term option for Darwin Núñez, was it? The Saudi move, it was just like you'd crapped out everywhere else. It's the only avenue available. At least get ridiculous money for a small period and go from there. But you've seen various reports, haven't there, that they're trying to get him to Europe. Even River Plate were looked at as well. Basically, just wants out of Al Hilal that way. And it's almost sad in a way, because we still maintain that affection for the mad bastard, don't we, somewhat? But it just doesn't look like, anyone's coming calling right now. What does look pretty certain now, in terms of Al Hilal's another departure, Cancelo. Do you remember the former City boy that was at Barca and then obviously went there when it, wasn't really an option for a permanency? Inter's president was coming out and saying, we've got issues, Dumfries, the injuries, we need a right back, so we're trying for Cancelo. But Barcelona had that thing in his contract, didn't they? That they had an option sort of bid and make it happen. And now it looks like, as Romano put there, I think that was earlier today. What time was that? Literally an hour and a half ago, Trev. Barca are now on the verge of signing João Cancelo. That's his priority. He's going to take a massive wage cut to facilitate that as well. So it looks like Inter have been shafted a little bit, haven't they? It's all sort of fallen flat what they were expecting. But I think it's quite telling now, more than anything. Even it's important to say that Ruben Neves, who we mentioned once upon a time, Mendes is trying to get him apparently a move back to Europe. He's only got 6 months left on his deal at Al Hilal. Not expected to sign a new one. All the travel's one way out of Saudi now, isn't it, really? From you think if we were doing this show, a year and a bit ago, how many we were linking? It's just someone's progressively stepped down throughout the years, and now it seems everyone wants almost out the other way.
Kind of felt pretty predictable back in the day. I remember saying to you on the show, this can't last. I mean, I think immediately when the few Liverpool lads went there, you were like, right, what's going on? And you knew already that there was, there were a couple of months in, and there was stories about Henderson wanting to leave, and he wasn't the only one. So many people just were like, no, this is not for me. And they're playing in empty stadiums, and there's only so much, I guess, that money motivates some guys. So yeah, I'm not surprised. Good luck to Darwin. I hope he gets something. Can I just say that whether it was a typo or not, in the chat panel there, I think it was K Mac referred to Bagels Man, and now that's what I'll be calling him from now on. Fair play to you. So thanks for that one. I would say, mate, that the only takeaway I have from this whole show is give it Rooney. Give it Rooney. That's my dream. Let's see Big Wazza in charge up these lengths.
I want a collective. I want them all there. I want to see like a press conference with like, give it Wazza, Give it Keeney, give it Butty, give it Scalzi, give it Giggsy. Like they're all there as a collection, like just one big sort of committee thing, with Jim will fix it in the background, saying, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. Like we've got no money, but we're going to do it. Yeah. And it just rolls around. That would make me feel a lot better than Glasner rocking up there or someone like that. So it's definitely one to keep an eye on.
Absolutely the same. Look, it's one of those shows where it's always very enjoyable to do, and you're looking around sometimes and you're envying the business being done by other people, or at least being touted to be done by other people. If you have to weigh up where we are at the moment, do you find yourself leaning a bit into the sort of accepted wisdom that's being thrown about by the past journals about, guess we better moderate our excitement a little bit, sort of manage our expectations a little bit? How does that sit, just as a final question, with the pressing need that you and I both know, given the situations we talked about with Chelsea and United, that you and I both know something needs to be done short term?
It's the hope against the expectation. You're right. I think we're all hoping that just one or two quality bodies, of course, through the door, it would just be a massive shot in the arm for the squad, wouldn't it? For everyone else as well. Like it would just make such a huge impact, I think, across the board. And you just have that concern now that everyone seems to be recognizing they're not there, like Chelsea, United. They're all trying to do things a little bit. And we just feel like we're going to go, nah, we're going to strap up the wounds and just go for the final stretch type of thing and limp across that line with the football, the personnel, the lack of, however you want to put it, and just this will work. We're almost gambling in that way. But the worry is, if it doesn't work, that gamble, they will have absolutely no defence. That's my only concern, that we could be talking in March almost back to this and go, how many times did we say in January we needed to do something and we didn't? That is just the real sort of, not fear, because that's too strong. You never know what can happen, but it is a concern at the same time that I think everyone thinks Liverpool need to do a couple. But that phrase, as you said, manage expectations, there doesn't seem anything too lively there. I just wish I could say different, but that's what I'm expecting.
Yeah. I'd go as far as to say it's a fear for me in terms of, rather than concern. I feel like that dog in the meme sitting in the fire with a cup of coffee going, this is fine. It's because it's not. And we all know it's not. The flames are lapping around us. And I don't care if that sounds dramatic. It's very much, I think, how a lot of people feel who are quite reasonable in their takes. But look, man, we've gone through them all. Is there anything you want to drop on us last minute? Any other little story that's dropped during the show or anything like that? Sometimes there is.
No, I think it's just one of those that we're sort of sitting into this window. What are we, 5 days into it? And we're hoping they're going to give us something, aren't we? We're hoping it's just like a twist in this tale. And I get people will be on the whole like, this is disgrace, dereliction of duty. Not disagreeing with you. And I'm probably going to get pelters a bit for this, but let's just wait till the end of the window, as we always say, before we make absolute judgments just yet.
Yeah, and then we will make absolute judgments. Don't worry. We'll go buck wild. But until then, from myself and Dave, this is fine. This is fine.
Fine.
See ya.
Yeah.